The train station was packed, the floor was still damp from the rain outside, and every step made a faint sticky sound. The air smelled like coffee mixed with the musty scent of wet clothes. Overhead, the PA system kept looping announcements, muffled and monotonous. I stood near the edge of the platform, with my arms folded, staring at the digital display board, making sure I had at least 10 more minutes before the train arrived. There were families dragging suitcases, young people with headphones lost in their own worlds, and commuters like me, just waiting. I shifted back half a step, wanting to put a little more space between myself and the edge. That's when a man stepped up beside me. He stopped very close enough that I could feel his breath. At first, I thought it was just a crowd pressing in, so I didn't pay attention. But he didn't move forward. He didn't back away either. He kept his head down, muttering under his breath. The words were soft, fragmented, like he was reciting something on repeat. The cadence was strange, unnatural, and I couldn't make out the meaning, only bits and pieces drifting into my ears. I turned slightly and shuffled half a step to the side. He followed. A thin chill ran along my spine, like a thread of cold air slipping through the seams of my clothes. I glanced at him. His face was pale, his eyes restless, sliding in and out of focus. His lips moved constantly, his voice stuck in his throat, sticky and damp like it wouldn't fully come out. He didn't look threatening, but he was too close, and something about that closeness triggered a raw, instinctive unease. I tried to move again. He mirrored me perfectly, his feet barely pausing. The overhead announcement came on, warning that the train was approaching. In the distance, the track started to hum, vibrating faintly. The crowd surged forward. The whole platform seemed to lurch as everyone pressed toward the edge. I was pushed along with them, closer to the yellow safety line. And then he lifted his head and smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was twisted, almost stretched too far. And for a split second, his eyes seemed to light up. The next moment, he shoved me. Hard. I wasn't ready for it. My foot slid past the yellow line, my whole body tipping forward. My toes were already dangling over the edge. The train's headlights cut through the platform, the sound of metal grinding against metal screaming closer. My heart stopped, literally stopped. I grabbed the nearest pole with both hands, clawing for it like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Somehow, I caught it. Somehow, I didn't fall. When I looked up, he was still smiling, softly, so faintly no one else even noticed. Then he turned and bolted into the crowd. His steps were too fast, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. I reached out, desperate to grab him, but my fingers only closed on air. People around me froze for a couple of seconds, realizing I'd almost fallen. Someone rushed over and pulled me back. "Are you okay?" a voice asked. I gasped for air, pointed toward the direction he ran, but my throat locked up. Nothing came out. No one chased him. He slipped into the sea of people like water, and just vanished. The train pulled in. Everyone boarded in a hurry, like nothing had happened. I stayed. I stood there, frozen, watching the crowd thin out until the platform felt empty again. The tracks were still trembling. When the train left, only a handful of people remained. Someone brushed past my shoulder, and I turned instinctively. He wasn't there. But in my ears, I swore I could still hear his muttering soft, sticky words, fading as soon as you tried to catch them, yet somehow glued to your mind. I gripped the railing. My palms were slick with sweat. That feeling of being pushed toward the edge, toward the exact point of no return, still clung to me. Like next time, he wouldn't just push once. After that day, I never stood close to the platform edge again. The long-distance train terminal always carried a certain heaviness at night, a tired, lingering hush in the air mixed with the scent of coffee, and to many people. The overhead lights flickered slightly as I stood in line with my luggage, waiting for my ticket to be checked. I'd booked a sleeper car. It was going to be an overnight ride, and I wouldn't reach my destination until morning. After boarding, I found my seat, stowed my bag, and sank into the chair with a deep breath. The car wasn't crowded. Some passengers were quietly eating sandwiches. Others had headphones on, resting with their eyes closed. I glanced at my phone 10 minutes until departure. Right on time, the train pulled out of the station. The platform slipped past the windows, swallowed quickly by the dark. The steady hum of the engine was low and rhythmic. I drank some water and tried to relax. About an hour in, most people had fallen asleep. The only sound left was the soft, repetitive clatter of wheels on the tracks. I stood up and stretched, pretending I was just taking a walk. As I moved further down the train, each car had fewer passengers, and the lighting grew dimmer, more yellowed. I stopped just before the last car. The door to it was half open. No lights inside, but I could hear something, a faint, murmuring hum, like many voices speaking at once, slow and low, as if locked in a deep, whispered conversation. Some strange curiosity pulled me forward. I reached out and pushed the door open, and then I froze. Despite the darkness outside, the last car was blindingly bright. Every seat was filled, rows and rows of people, all perfectly still. Their clothes didn't match. Some wore suits. Others looked like they'd stepped out of an old black and white movie. A few wore hats or cloaks. They all sat quietly, slightly hunched, whispering to each other with just the corners of their eyes. And then, all at once, they turned. Every single one of them, their eyes locked onto me. It felt like I had crashed a gathering, was never supposed to witness. The temperature dropped. A few of them curled their lips into faint smiles. Some moved their mouths, soundlessly mouthing words I couldn't hear. The ones closest to the door breathed so slowly, so shallowly, like they were trying not to make a sound. I stood frozen at the entrance, my throat dry and itchy, unable to speak. One man near the middle slowly turned his head and whispered something to the person beside him. That person nodded, then turned to look at me too. Their gaze spread through the car like a wave until every single person was staring straight at me. My heartbeat crashed in my ears. I took a single step back, and then a woman in the far corner raised her hand. Just slightly, her index finger pointed right at me. Her lips moved, barely, as if saying, "Him." I didn't think. I yanked the door open and ran back through the cars, until I slammed the door shut behind me. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for air, my back soaked in cold sweat. I rushed to my seat and dropped into it, gripping the armrests so tightly my hands hurt. Outside the window was nothing, just blackness and the occasional flash of passing lights. I tried to tell myself they were just passengers, maybe some kind of costume group or reenactment thing. But their eyes, they didn't look like people. I didn't sleep at all. I stared out the window the entire night, waiting for the sun to rise. When we finally reached the station, I got off the train and spotted the tall conductor standing on the platform, directing passengers toward the exit. I couldn't help myself. I walked up and asked, "That last train car, who were those people?" He blinked, frowned faintly, as if confused, then shook his head. "That car's off limits. It's only for luggage and maintenance staff. No passengers are allowed in there." I stared at him for a few seconds, an icy unease spreading through my chest. He wasn't joking. His face was sincere. I didn't ask anything else. I just turned and walked away from the platform fast. When the train pulled into the station, I stood among the crowd, holding my bag. The harsh glow of the late-night train lights made the platform feel too bright. The air smelled faintly metallic and cold. As the doors opened, the previous wave of passengers spilled out, their shoes clicking sharply against the wet ground. I found a window seat and sat down. The car was quiet, just a few people flipping through newspapers or scrolling their phones. I pulled a bottle of water from my bag and took a sip, ready to relax for the few hours ahead. The door slid shut again, and the train slowly lurched forward. The platform slipped away behind us, the city lights swallowed by the dark. After a while, a little boy stepped into the car. He quietly sat down across from me. He couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. He wore slightly old-fashioned clothes, suspenders over a crisp white shirt, buttoned all the way up, with a pair of polished leather shoes. He sat straight as a board, hands neatly resting on his knees. At first glance, he just looked out of place, like someone from an old photograph. The train hummed steadily. After a long stretch of silence, he finally looked up at me. His voice was so soft I barely heard it. "Where are you going?" I blinked, not thinking much of it. "Home," I answered casually. He paused for a moment. Then, very slowly, the corners of his mouth lifted into a smile that felt wrong somehow. "Me too," he said. That smile was brief, but it burned itself into my memory. And then suddenly the entire train car fell silent. Not the normal kind of quiet. A heavy, dead silence. I glanced around. Moments ago, someone had been turning a page. Someone else had coughed. A man was sipping from a paper cup. But now every single person was frozen. Their eyes didn't blink. The man holding the paper cup still had it tilted midair, but not a single drop of coffee spilled. The train kept moving. The dark scenery rushed past the windows. But inside, it was like everything had been pulled out of reality. My heart started pounding, my palms slick with sweat. I tried not to move too much. I looked back at the boy. He was still smiling. His hands slowly slipped from his knees, hanging at his sides, like he was waiting. He didn't speak again, just stared at me unblinking. I swallowed hard and tried to break the silence. "It's late. Are you riding alone?" I asked. He didn't answer. The smile didn't fade. He just slowly tilted his head, as if listening to something else. Then he raised one finger, brought it to his lips. Shh! A chill shot straight up my spine. The people around us remained frozen, lifeless. I turned to look out the window, trying to ground myself in the blur of passing lights. But even the faint hum of the train felt heavy, muffled, like the air itself was too thick to breathe. My ears started ringing. I thought about standing up, running to another car, but my legs wouldn't move. They felt pinned, heavy, useless. The boy leaned forward. His feet stayed on the floor, but his body seemed to glide closer silently. His face came nearer and nearer, until I could see the faint sweep of his eyelashes. His eyes, they didn't have the softness of a child's. They were hollow, empty, like something long dead. And then, so close I could feel the faintest whisper of his breath, he said, "We're going home together." I blinked, and in that instant, the noise came back. The newspaper rustled again. Someone nearby sneezed. A voice murmured on a phone call. The familiar clatter of wheels on rails returned. I gasped for air. My eyes darted back to the boy's seat. Empty. Nothing there. Just a folded newspaper on the seat cushion. A faint trace of leather polish in the air. I looked around wildly, but no one seemed to have noticed anything. Everyone was back to their normal, mundane routines. The train kept rolling smoothly through the night. I gripped the strap of my bag so tightly my knuckles ached. I didn't move until the announcement for the next stop echoed through the car, snapping me out of the haze. When the train finally reached the last station, I stepped off. My legs felt unsteady on the platform. The station was brightly lit. People poured toward the exit. I followed slowly, outside. The city air felt familiar, real. A line of taxis waited by the curb. I inhaled deeply, telling myself I was safe now. I reached my front door and slid the key into the lock. But the door swung open before I could turn it. My wife burst out, her face glowing with a kind of joy I hadn't seen in a long time. She clutched something in her hand, a pregnancy test. Her eyes were sparkling, tears brimming. She practically leapt into my arms. "We're having a baby," she said, breathless with excitement. I froze for just a second before it sank in. I wrapped my arms around her. And in that moment, the lingering chill from the train dissolved. Her warmth, her heartbeat against my chest, so real, so alive. I smiled down at her, holding that little test in my hand. And for a moment, what happened on the train felt like a distant dream.